People of Earth, we have come to upgrade your cosmic consciousness. DNA activation ready. In 3, 2, 1.
Hi, welcome to Q&A on Breakthrough Leadership. I'm Lou Quinto.
And I'm Craig Anderson.
Today our topic is going to be improving communications at work. Originally we had titled this Improving Communications with Millennials, but we flushed this out a little bit, and believe it or not, we do flush these things out as we're going through and talking about what we're going to cover. Yep. And we realized that it really isn't the millennial generation that we have to improve communications with. It started to change, and I think the millennial generation really, the trajectory just kicked it off. And so what we're going to do is just cover communications in general, how to improve it at work. And the three topics that we're going to cover include keeping all communications brief. Second one is using instant messenger type of software applications as opposed to the typical email for that everyday types of communication. And then lastly, to incorporate media into communiques that you have to grab people's attention. So the first topic we're going to talk about is keeping those communications brief. Craig.
Yeah. Well, and I think this is something that I've seen coming for several years is, long emails that nobody reads, right? It's the hashtag TLDR, right? I'm not reading it. If you send me a big long email, I'm not reading it. We've gotten more towards short communications, precise communications, bullet points. And that's what people really want to get through. We can kind of have a lot of fun criticizing whether or not it's effective. But the reality is people have got a lot of things going on. Email started out as a helpful tool and has now become, an onerous drag on productivity. So if you are going to communicate, the shorter the better. Stick to your point. Don't get really extraneous. And keep focused on what it is you want people to take away from the email. Yeah. So I think it's important to know, by the way, don't copy everybody. Just don't. So, keep it brief. Don't copy the world, and just get the people looped in that you need to. I think that's an important piece.
But I want everybody to know.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, don't send it at 11:30 at night. We know what you're doing. I'm not impressed.
Or 2 a.m. in the morning.
Oh, yeah. I know. I've had that guy, too. So,
right. Today, it's almost because of my generation, the boomer generation. I think when I got out of college and got into business, it was still postal service. So you had the tendency that when you wrote a letter, it was your only opportunity to communicate with somebody because they wouldn't get it for a couple days. It was long. So you had 2 or 3 or 4 page letters. You had reports that were going out because we didn't have that ability to communicate short because, well, one, it costs a lot of money to send stuff through the mail. Yeah. And so the trajectory, as I said before, has been to shorter and shorter. One of the things that I always like to talk about when I talk to people about communications is think about the USA Today. It had become the most popular newspaper in the world, primarily because all the articles were short. There were a lot of bullet points. There were tables and graphs and things like that where you literally could look at something very quickly, get the meat of it, and then move on from there, as opposed to the TLDR, too long didn't read type of situation. So keeping them brief. Think about bullet points. You don't need to expand it. If someone has a question, they can come back to you and they can ask you about that question.
Okay? Boomer.
So, you can get in trouble for calling me a boomer. So I just read an article about that.
Yeah.
Anyway, instant messaging over email. I'll pick up from what I just said before. We have seen an evolution of communication in business, at least someone my age, where we've gone from letters to faxes to emails. And it's gotten to the point now where an email is almost like sending something through the mail.
Right.
The younger generation of leaders, they don't like to look at emails as much as that quick, instant access to an instant message or something like that. That's why Instagram is so big, Twitter's so big. You talk about, keeping things short. 140, it's up to 260 characters, I believe now, that you go ahead and make your communication. And so it's really, I think it's ingrained in us. Keep it short and put it on a medium where I can look at it real quickly.
Yeah, I mean, aside from instant messaging, it's, even text. I did a lot of business over text with, I worked for my last firm, the parent company, of people all over the country.
Yeah.
And, a lot of times people are out and about traveling and they don't have necessarily easy access to instant messenger. So, we used to get a lot done via text. Group text, instant messaging. These are the tools that I think quickly get things done because things are moving at a much faster pace. So, let's just get something out, get this resolved, surface it, and then decide, do we have to have one of Lou's favorite things? Do we have to have a meeting about this?
Right.
But, I think, using these short, quick tools really helps kind of get some urgency. I would say don't abuse them because they can become the next thing where it's like, oh my God, I got 6 instant messages popping up on my screen. I don't have time for this. So,
yeah. Particularly when you're on a group text,
oh, yeah.
and all of a sudden, your phone's just beep, 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 because 8, 9 people are responding all to the same text.
Yeah.
And even though we're talking about these different, I think there needs to be some sort of, and I'm not going to say a policy or anything, but there needs to be an understanding of when to use an email because the information needs to be recorded, documented,
right.
when to use a text message as opposed to sending a very long text message that should have been sent in an email because you need to go back and you need to refer to it. I think there needs to be some guidelines or understanding as you're looking at the availability of communications with us.
Sure.
So the third topic we're going to cover is talking about incorporating different types of media into your communiques, whether it be an email, whether it be a text message. We tend to be a very verbal or visual society.
Right.
And so if you can demonstrate something through a YouTube video that describes something that probably does a better job than you would do at describing it, or maybe there's a company video on a product or maybe on features on a product or things like that.
Right.
If you can incorporate those into your email, you will find that the retention of the information that you want to get across and also the length of time that people spend on that communication that you've spent will definitely increase because there was a visual there as opposed to just reading.
Right, and when we're talking visuals here, we're not talking about funny GIFs and memes.
No.
Right, and not emojis.
Not
right?
not that woman arguing with the cat. That's not a good.
I wouldn't use that with a client or with my boss, but it's possible. If you have, I would view some of those things as CLMs, career limiting moves. But if you can drop a chart in that shows, here's the issue I'm talking about, or a video like you talked about.
Yep.
Right, there's just quick visual information that helps people kind of pull out what it is they need from the message. So it's really again brief to the point. Incorporate other tools like media if you can that'll help you get there.
Right.
And that's I think that's where we're moving to, and I think we're continue to move. As you said, the trajectory started. I would say this trajectory started probably 10 or 15 years ago.
Right.
But it's really I think now what we're seeing is we're seeing a lot of tools like Slack and other things that are facilitating that and helping us to get even more focused on it. But it also kind of forces people of a certain age to change the tools they're using for keeping track, like you talked about. So there's a lot of change coming on.
Sure.
So I think, Lou, we may have already jumped into takeaways.
I
so
think we have. Okay.
Yeah.
Why don't you start off then, since you were talking?
Sure. So again, I think it's it's adapting to these new models. Keeping it short. Email had its day in the sun. But we're now moving away from that and into more quick hit. Let's get this piece across because we need. I've got this client issue. I've got this potential opportunity.
Right.
I need a quick answer to things. So not everything requires an 8-paragraph email to get things done. So I mean that's my key takeaway is life comes at you fast, as Ferris Bueller said. So move things quickly and get to short, more concise.
Well,
messages.
and the other thing you talked about career limiting moves. One of my key takeaways is that if you've got someone from okay boomer generation that sends you that 8-paragraph email and they have influence over your job or position at the company that which you're working, read the email. TLDR does not work with that person, and so you need to respect the way that other people are comfortable at communicating.
Right.
But obviously we want to make sure that I always say think like tweets. I'm not endorsing Twitter, but use that mentality that when you're preparing an email to prepare your thoughts in tweet bullet point modes so that people you're taking the time to truly understand and what you want to write. Right. So you just can't just start typing. It has to be wordsmith. It has to be edited. Get rid of the LOLs and the OMGs and things like that, TLDRs, because that's not professional. That's the one thing that I would say is make sure you maintain that professionality.
Yep, keep it professional as always. So
very
good.
All right. So we hope you enjoyed today's conversation conversation on how to improve communications at work. If you like this video, go ahead and click on the like button, or if you want to, please share this video with other people who you may be having communication problems with. And also take and subscribe to Q&A on Breakthrough Leadership so that you know when the next episode is coming across. So thanks for joining us. Again, my name is Lou Quinto.
And I'm Craig Anderson.